Good morning, Year 4. Okay, we are now on to the next chapter of Charlie Bone and the Time Twister. So, let's dive right in. Scarpo the Sorcerer. Sounds like a new character. Grandma Bone's 3 sisters were usually entertained in the tidy room across the hall. But today, here they were, sitting around the table and swamping the normally cosy kitchen with their dreadful dark clothes and sour faces. They had draped their black coats across the chairs and dumped their large black bags on the dresser. There was a half-eaten cake, oozing cream, on the table, and the room smelled of stale buns and old lavender. Charlie tried to make the best of things. "Hello, aunties," he said, painfully cheerfully. "What a surprise!" "I'm surprised your mother lets you stay out so late," said Aunt Lucretia. "Where have you been?" "Where's Mum?" said Charlie, looking around. "Where's Mum? Where's my mummy?" said Aunt Eustacia in a silly voice. Charlie looked at the cake. No one offered him a slice. "Your mother is out," said Grandma Bone. "Where?" "Dearie me, we are in a state about our mummy, aren't we?" cooed Venetia, the youngest and most deadly of the sisters. "I'm not in a state," said Charlie, indignantly. "It's just that I'm surprised she's not here." "She's gone to the theatre," said Grandma Bone. "She had 2 free tickets to see Divine Drums. Naturally, she wanted to take you, but you weren't here, were you?" "She didn't say anything about tickets to me," said Charlie. "Where did they come from?" "We don't know everything about your mum, do we?" said Aunt Eustacia. "She probably got them from her boyfriend." "She hasn't got a boyfriend," said Charlie. "How do you know?" said Aunt Venetia, patting her hair, which was coiled above her head like a black serpent. "She's still a young woman, after all." "She doesn't need a boyfriend," said Charlie, "because my dad's still alive." Icy silence descended on the kitchen. The 4 sisters stiffened. Their mouths tightened into grim, dark lines. Grandma Bone broke the silence and said, "Why do you persist in this nonsense, boy? Your father died. We even had a funeral." "But there was no body," said Charlie. He turned to leave, but all 4 sisters, in unison, shouted, "Stop!" Taken by surprise, Charlie did stop. "You haven't told us about Henry," said Grandma Bone. "There's nothing to tell," said Charlie. "You've been a very stupid boy," said Matron Lucretia. "Do you think we don't know about the Time Twister? Do you think we haven't heard how Ezekiel Blore sent his little cousin, Henry, spinning away through time, and now he has ended up at the academy a few years too late for his own good?" "Ha ha ha!" cackled Aunt Eustacia nastily. "It's not a joke," said Charlie angrily. "How would you like it?" "Got you," snapped Grandma Bone. "Admit you've seen him." Charlie stamped his feet. "I won't admit nothing." "Anything!" screamed Aunt Lucretia. "Grammar boy, you won't admit anything." "Oh, yes he will." Grandma Bone leapt to her feet. "Where is he?" she screeched. "We'll find him eventually, you know, but if he doesn't come out soon, old Ezekiel's going to be in such a mood, he'll send him back to the Ice Age." "He can't," said Charlie. "Not without the Time Twister." "You have no idea what Ezekiel can do," said Aunt Venetia in her dangerous, silky tone. "Some of it's too horrible for words. Why won't you tell us where this wretched Henry is hiding? He doesn't deserve your loyalty. He's just a nuisance. Why can't you be a good boy for a change? I would hate Ezekiel to hurt you as well, my pet." Charlie had no idea what to say to this. Aunt Venetia always managed to catch him off guard just by being nice. Luckily, the door opened and Uncle Peyton came in. "What was all that noise?" said Peyton. "I can't hear myself think." "What's I supposed supposed to be silent, said Eustacia with a giggle. Don't be silly, said Peyton. Be so good as to turn down the volume. My work has reached a very critical stage. I can't have my concentration ruined by a gaggle of screeching geese. Screeching? Screeched Aunt Lucretia. In a more reasonable tone, Grandma Bone said, We're interrogating Charlie about something of vital importance. Well, I need him for something far more important, said Peyton. Come along, Charlie. Charlie sprang gratefully towards his uncle, but Grandma Bone hadn't finished. The boy stays here, she said, until we've got the truth out of him. Uncle Peyton sighed. He directed his gaze towards the lamp hanging over the table. Peyton, Grandma Bone said sharply, you wouldn't dare. I would, said Peyton. The next moment there was a small explosion. The four sisters leapt away from the table as a shower of broken glass fell from the lamp and settled on the cake. Come on, Charlie, said Peyton. Charlie quickly followed his uncle out of the kitchen, while Grandma Bone and the aunts, twittering like birds, jumped about looking for dishcloths, picking glass off the cake and dusting down their clothes. Thank you for getting me out of there, Uncle Peyton, said Charlie, as he closed Peyton's door behind him. Not at all, not at all. I actually do need you, Charlie. Peyton seemed very excited about something. I've been experimenting. Look. He took a book from his desk, opened it, and began to read. Still reading, he walked to the switch by the door and turned on the light that hung in the centre of the room. Expecting the light to shatter, Charlie ducked, but nothing happened. I thought that you took all the light bulbs out of your room, said Charlie. So I did, Peyton murmured, still intent on his reading, but I've put one back. So what's going on? Said Charlie. Turn the light off, dear boy, said Peyton. I can't work and concentrate on my book at the same time. Mystified, Charlie turned off the light. His uncle's room was once again bathed in a soft glow from the oil lamp above his desk. So, Charlie, are you surprised that the light bulb didn't break? Asked Peyton. Well, yes, said Charlie, but then you don't always break them, do you? Not if you're, well, relaxed. Exactly. Peyton gave a sigh of satisfaction. When my mind is switched off, he laughed, if you'll excuse the pun. When my thoughts are elsewhere, as it were, I'm less prone to accidents of the electrical kind. So, I decided, if I read in a very engrossing book, while in the presence of an electrified light bulb, the bulb might not shatter. I see, Charlie said slowly. That's very interesting, Uncle Peyton. More than interesting, dear boy. It worked. It's a miracle. Peyton beamed with triumph. I can go out in daylight if I'm reading a book. I can walk past lighted shop windows. I can walk near traffic lights without breaking them. Perhaps I can even enter a coffee shop if I'm reading. Charlie could see drawbacks to his uncle's plan. It would be dangerous for Peyton to wander through the city streets, not looking where he was going. It could be a bit dodgy, he said. He might get run over. That's where you come in, Charlie. If you were with me, you could see the pitfalls. I thought tomorrow we might take a walk in the direction of the cathedral, just to test my theory. I take it you mean the direction of Ingledew's book shop, said Charlie. His uncle went pink, especially around the ears. He gave a small cough and said, I can't deny it. Miss Ingledew has been much in my thoughts. I feel that were she to see me walking around in daylight, she wouldn't think me such a freak. She doesn't think you're a freak, Uncle Peyton. It's just that trying to be a mum to Emma is using up all her energy. Peyton gave a huge sigh and shook his head. No, Charlie. She's wary of me, and who could blame her? OK, tomorrow we'll take a walk to Ingledew's, said Charlie, a little reluctant to be drawn away from the things on his mind. Thank you, Charlie. The telephone in the hall began to ring. I wonder if that's for me, muttered Charlie. Better find out, said Peyton. You can bet that my sisters won't pass on any messages. Charlie went out to the landing and looked down into the hall. He was just in time to see Grandma Bone pick up the receiver and shout, "He's not here!" and hang it down again. "Was that for me?" said Charlie. Grandma Bone glared at him. "Of course not," she said. "Who do you think you are?" "I live here," said Charlie, "and it's just possible my friends might want to talk to me." "Huh," snorted Grandma Bone. The Yewbeam aunts emerged from the kitchen. They were still brushing down their coats and patting their heads. "There's a bit!" cried Venetia, grabbing a lock off Eustasia's grey hair. Eustacia yelled, "Get it out! Get it out!" Unfortunately, Aunt Lucretia looked up and saw Charlie smiling. "You can wipe that grin off your face," she said. "We haven't finished with you yet." The three sisters trooped out through the front door and then stood on the step, whispering to Grandma Bone. The telephone rang again, and this time Charlie swooped down the stairs and picked up the receiver before Grandma Bone could get to it. "Hi, is that you, Charlie?" It was Gabriel. "Yes," said Charlie cautiously. "A nasty voice told me you weren't there, but I didn't believe them." "My grandma," said Charlie in the same tone. Grandma Bone closed the front door and stood watching Charlie. "Is she there?" asked Gabriel. "Yes," said Charlie, turning his back on Grandma Bone. "Look, Charlie, I found something in the lane outside our house. Several things, actually. I think you ought to see them." "Where shall we meet?" asked Charlie. "Mum's delivering some stuff to the Pets Cafe tomorrow afternoon," said Gabriel. "Meet me there." Charlie had never heard of the Pets Cafe before. "Where's that?" "Frog Street," said Gabriel, "between Mud Lane and Water Street, just behind the cathedral." This was good news. "I'm going there with my uncle," said Charlie. "Can I bring him?" "Sure. Is he the glass-breaking uncle? He's brilliant." "It is." "Great. Got to go now. See you tomorrow. About 3 o'clock. Ouch! Oh, the gerbil bit me. Bye!" There was a loud clunk. It sounded as if Gabriel had dropped the phone. When Charlie looked around, Grandma Bone had gone. He peeped into the kitchen. She wasn't there, so Charlie made himself a quick snack and sat down. The table had been cleared of broken glass, but something lay where the cake had been. A small picture, placed face down. Charlie guessed that it had been left there on purpose, and, knowing his aunts, he was sure that it was a trick. But what sort of trick? He concentrated on his food, refusing to look at the picture. And then he began to wonder if it really was a trick. Gradually, Charlie's gaze was drawn to a dark panel at the back of the picture. It looked very old. The wood now cracked and covered with tiny wormholes. The screws were rusty and the string had broken. Charlie took a breath and flipped the frame over. He saw a small painting of a room. But what kind of room? He couldn't resist taking in the details. On the right side of the painting, a tall man in a black robe was looking at a skull that lay at his feet. The man's dark beard was threaded with silver, and he wore a round black skull cap on his silver hair. In an alcove behind the man, a table covered in red cloth was piled with books, bowls, feathers, bundles of herbs, animal horns, and gleaming weapons. Strange symbols had been chalked on the bare stone walls, and the man was in the act of drawing a star with 5 points. Charlie found himself staring at the skull. He tried to look away from it, but he couldn't. He began to hear sounds, a low chanting in a strange language, the scraping of chalk on stone, the rubbing of heavy robes. And then, suddenly, the man turned his head and looked at Charlie, looked right into his eyes. Charlie gasped and quickly whipped the painting over. Out in the street, a car door slammed and he heard his mother's voice. A man spoke and his mother laughed. She rarely laughed. What had the man said, and who was he? When Mrs. Bone walked into the kitchen, Charlie could see the yellow eyes of the man in the black robe, fixing him with a glare of triumph. "Charlie, are you all right?" said Emmy Bone. "You look very pale." Charlie touched the back of the painting. He found that he couldn't explain what happened to him, so he asked, "Where were you?" There was a nasty whine in his voice, but he couldn't help. "I've been to see Divine Drums. I wanted you to come with us, but you weren't here, Charlie." "Us?" said Charlie, sounding even more sulky. "Who's us?" "Bob Davies and myself." Mrs. Bones smiled encouragingly. "He got 3 tickets, and you were supposed to have come. I couldn't disappoint him when I found out you weren't here, could I?" "Who's this Bob Davies?" asked Charlie, hating the whine in his own voice. "Charlie, what's come over you?" Mrs. Bone pulled out a chair and sat beside him. "Bob's just a friend, a very nice man who wanted to take us to the theatre. Why are you so grumpy?" Charlie was ashamed. He said, "I'm sorry, Mum. Something happened to me just now. The aunt left that." He nodded at the painting, not wanting even to touch it. Mrs. Bone picked up the painting. "The Sorcerer," she said, reading the painted scrawl at the bottom of the picture. Charlie hadn't even noticed that the painting had a title. "I think it was a trick," he murmured. "What sort of trick?" "I don't know yet." He carefully turned the painting over again. "Tell you what," said Mrs. Bone, patting Charlie's shoulder. "I'll just run upstairs and change my clothes, and then we'll have a nice cup of tea before you go to bed, shall we?" "Yes, please," said Charlie, although he was wondering how a cup of tea could help take away the memories of the sorcerer's eyes. He noticed a sparkle of sequins on his mother's dress as she began to unbutton her coat. "Mum, that might not be..." Mrs. Bone swung around. "Might not be what?" "He might not be dead," Charlie said quietly. "Oh, Charlie, bless you. Of course he is." She gave Charlie a peck on the cheek and hastened out. She didn't seem as sad as she usually did at the mention of his father. This worried Charlie. Mrs. Bone had only been gone a few seconds when Uncle Peyton poked his head round the door. He was holding a lighted candle. "I feel peckish," he said. "Mind if I turn the light out, Charlie?" Charlie shook his head. The lamp above the table went out, and Uncle Peyton walked to the fridge. He brought out a plate of cold ham and tomatoes and set the plate and a candle on the table. He was about to speak when he saw the back of the painting. "I hope that isn't what I think it is," said Peyton. "What do you think it is?" said Charlie, alarmed by his uncle's grim presence. "I'm very much afraid that it might be." He turned the painting face up and sighed. "Yes, I thought so. I suppose my daft sisters left it here." "Is it someone in the family?" asked Charlie. "Indeed, yes. His name was Scarpo," said Peyton, "and he was a very powerful sorcerer." "Uncle Peyton, my endowment," Charlie spoke hesitantly. "I thought it only worked with photos." Peyton stared at Charlie. "Do you mean that you have heard?" He pointed to the sorcerer. "Did this man speak to you?" "Not exactly," said Charlie. "I just heard." "Charlie!" Peyton slammed the painting face down on the table. "You didn't go into the picture, did you?" "Go in?" said Charlie wildly. "What do you mean, go in? I was just looking at it when he turned his head and stared at me." Peyton regarded Charlie with a mixture of fear and concern. "Then he has seen you," he said gravely. And as his uncle spoke, Charlie heard the moan of a chill wind. He heard the rattle of chains, a terrible cry, and the shrill, dry chanting of Scarpo the Sorcerer. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. I wonder who this Scarpo the Sorcerer is, and I wonder why the Yewbeam monks have left that picture, it's not a picture, that painting, for Charlie. Is he going to be able to hear paintings too? And what were they talking about when they were saying, "Go inside"? How is he going to go inside the photo? There's a few mysteries coming up, and I can't wait to find out what happens next.